I greet our colleague from Vietnam, and I greet our colleague from Southern University of Railway Trans. Can I ask you, can you expressly hear us?
Inna Vladimirovna, good morning. Yes, we can hear you and we can see you pretty much well. Yes, the connection is pretty much okay.
The same from me and my colleague. Today's meeting is devoted to advanced technology and in business and finance. Let me introduce our expert today. Assistant Professor of Economy and Finance Department, Rostov University of Railway Transport, Alina Andreeva. Assistant Professor of Economy Theory Department of Financial University, Vladimir Skalkin. Professor of Global Economy and Global Finance Department, Елизавета Sokolova. And the only representative of business, executive director of ITCON Audit company, Всеволод Буланцев. Deputy Dean of International Economic Relations Faculty, Екатерина Сверина. And on behalf of two our scientific magazines, first of your peer reviews, a review of business and economic study, and second, Мир новой экономики, New Economy World, it's me, Inna Lukashenko. As for us, I inform, we have our third magazine representative today here. Now yet. Okay. Nevertheless, we must estimate our presentation by head of magazine Merger and Acquisition, Andrei Zaykov. So, dear colleague, I remind our time limits, about 10 minutes for each report and approximately the same for subsequent discussion. Is it clear for our guests? Dear Vietnamese colleague, can you hear us?
Алло, и как еще? Алло, да. Могут мне послать?
Алина?
Я подключусь.
Okay, I think we can continue.
Inna Vladimirovna, we can hear you.
Okay, I got it. Just a few words for our audience. Dear students, please be active during our discussion because don't hesitate to ask any question you want to ask to our presenter, and I already remind you that all your questions, all your activity will be estimated by Елизавета Sokolova and will be revealed as additional scores to your course common score. So, couple of words to our experts. We need your criticism to our presenters. We ask you to criticize our work, but we hope your criticism will be well-wishing and give new impact to our researchers. So, let's give our words to our first presenter from Rostov. Colleagues, it's your turn. Rostov.
Yes, Inna Vladimirovna, we can hear you, and I would like to start our presentation with introduction of the topic. And Rodion Berestov is our master's student. He's taking master's degree in finance. So we would like to start with the presentation. So here you are.
Do you wish to show your presentation yourself or give us the right?
Не будем шокать.
I will proceed. Start, please.
So let me introduce Rodion, and he's going to begin his report. And I would like to say some words that today is the first day we're holding the presentation time executed by our master student. Before it was presented by researchers and candidate of science. So I would like to wish some luck to our master student, and here it goes.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Rodion Rostov. I am master's degree student of the program Corporate Finance and Accounting in the Transport and Industrial System of Rostov State Transport University. The topic of my speech is breakthrough technologies in business, Internet of Finance. The topic of the digital segment of the economy has become relevant due to the qualitative changes that have taken place in the economy and society. New technologies and platforms allow enterprise management and individuals to reduce transactions costs of interaction on an increasingly large scale, and to make closer contact with economic entities and government agencies. As a result, an economy is being formed based on network services that is digital or electronic. The very concept of digitalization indicates a new stage in improving the management of the production of goods and services, and the production itself based on through application of modern IT, starting from the Internet of Things and ending with e-government technologies. The main reason for the expansion of the digital segment of the economy is the growth of the transaction sector, which in developed countries is more than 70% of the national GDP. To this sector, first of all, the sphere of electronic commerce, state management, consulting, and information services, finance, wholesale and retail trade, as well as provision the degree of diversification and the dynamics of the economy. The greater the volume of unique data circulating inside and outside in the country, and accordingly the more information traffic is generated within national economies. Therefore, the digital economy is most effective in markets with a large number of participants and a high level of penetration of ICT service. First of all, this applies of internet-dependent industries, for example, transport, trade, etc., in which the share of e-segment is approximately 10% of GDP, more than 4% of employment. And these indicators have a clear tendency of growth. Today, almost the whole world is talking about the digital revolution that has affected all areas of society, where the financial sector is no exception. The consequences of the penetration of new innovative technologies into financial markets was the companies of the fintech segment, a reduction from the concept of financial technologies. Under the term breakthrough new technologies in the financial sector, and integral characteristic of which is to increase the effectiveness of the area. The term fintech appeared quite recently. The history of modern fintech developed with the crisis of 2008, but the first steps in this field were made back in 1950. According to various estimates, there are more than 10 growing. According to recent reports by KPMG and Deloitte, in recent years there has been a significant decrease in investments in the financial technology sector. Over the past few years, investments in the fintech industry have grown exponentially. If in 2010 it was about $9 billion US, by 2016 they have grown to 25 billion. In our opinion, the fintech market, like the digital economy as a whole, now forms several main trends. The development of the blockchain and cryptocurrency, the rise of big data, the development of the Internet of the Things, the development of smart contracts and smart property, the banks and fintech startups, the development of API platforms supporting big data and open banking system, the development of AI technologies, machine learning, deep machine learning, and the widespread use of biometric technologies. At the same time, I would like to focus on some trends and consider them in more detail. The first trend is the development of smart contracts. The use of smart contracts was thought of by Nick Szabo in 1994. However, then there was no instrument, a decentralized registry which could fully realize its idea. The situation changed in 2008. Then came the technology of a chain of blocks or blockchain. Some of the basic principles of smart contract are laid by Satoshi Nakamoto when developing Bitcoin. However, they could not be widely disseminated. Because of security reasons, Bitcoin's founder, when creating a cryptocurrency, did not give smart contracts the necessary opportunities. The situation has changed with the advent of Ethereum. The first platform which began to widely use smart contracts in practice is considered to be Ethereum. Ethereum is the open platform for creating decentralized block-based services and applications based on smart contracts. So, smart contracts are computer products which, based on mathematical algorithms, independently conduct transactions with full control over the implementation. The main value of smart contracts is their security in comparison with traditional contracts, and the minimization of transaction costs associated with the conclusion of the contract and possible legal costs, as well as the absence of the possibility of interference of the third parties and the absence of risks of ambitious interpretations. The main object of a smart contract are signatories, parties that conclude a smart contract, The object of the contract is an object is located within the environment of the most intelligent contract, or have direct access to both the internet and to most intelligent contract without human participation. Conditions. Mathematical algorithms programmed in the environment of the existence of a smart contract. Smart contracts can be used in various spheres of life. They allow you to better monetize your business. Among the main areas can be identified elections, insurance, taxation, trade, partnership programs, and so on. If we consider smart contracts when used in different spheres of life, we can a number of important advantages. Independence. You no longer need to use the service of intermediary to enter into transactions. Security. A smart contract is in a distributed registry. Its conditions cannot be changed. Saving. Getting rid of intermediaries, the parties to a smart contract can cooperate on more favorable terms. Absence of costs. In the event that the terms and conditions are met, the parties immediately exchange assets. Smart contracts cannot be called an ideal tool for building relationships between people. They also have several shortcomings. Legal status. For the work of smart contracts, cryptocurrency is used and it's not yet accepted as an official financial instrument. Mistakes. To create a smart contract, you need to prescribe all kinds of conditions and options for the development of transactions. The more complex the process, and more difficult it's to create a smart contract. A lack of understanding. Most users still don't understand what the smart contracts are. Despite the above mentioned shortcomings, smart contracts have a high potential to gain a foothold in our lives in the future. They will become increasingly used as things are connected to the internet. The next trend of the fintech industry is the development of the API platforms and the open banking system. Today's leading companies are carrying out digital transformations and immerse themselves in the API economy. The basis of these transformations are connected devices and the desire of customers to interact with the brand at the highest level. The result of these changes is the continuous growth of data volumes. In the API economy, application programming interface, APIs, connect service, applications, and systems. With their help, companies can make the most efficient use of data to create high quality user interfaces and discover new channels for generated revenue. The API economy, application programming interface, can be seen as a digital automatic exchange of business computers, allowing organization to integrate key services for the development and expansion of business case and markets. The philosophy of integration and the rapid development of technology are driving the API economy. The API economy is based on 4 blocks: social, mobile, analytical, and cloud. Using the API opens up new opportunities for interacting with the digital ecosystem. API offer new ways to create a competitive advantage, for example, creating cross-selling opportunities and increasing your own sales by integrating content from partners, creation of new line of business, expanding product offerings using enterprise data and in new ways, advertising a trademark by providing a complete personalized experience at all points of contact with customers. Reuse resulting in new integration with partners are faster, providing services within the company in the most effective way. The API is a link between banks and financial services, and also allows banks to share information in a secure and controlled way without disclosing the data of their customers. In general, the interaction of banks and fintech projects on the basis of open APIs creates an environment in which to exchange ideas for new services and e-commerce applications. And with API banks, new opportunities become available. Interaction with chatbots, the Internet of Things, and social networks. Open banking system is a system based on use of the API. Using the API, companies combine service to improve the quality of customer service. The main goal of open banking system is to provide an opportunity for third parties to analyze or use data. Open banking and API are essentially the same, with the API being used more often, for example, in Europe. Open banking and the API are always mentioned together. The API has become a product or service of the bank, allowing the production of platforms that are compatible with the API. This allows developers and third parties to connect to the bank. The bank can also use this type of service for these operations and business. In conclusion, I want to say that smart contracts have a high potential to gain a foothold in our lives in the future. They will become increasingly used as things are connected to the Internet. With the development of Internet of Things, smart contracts can be implemented in various financial and non-financial spheres, such as buying, selling, payments, transfers, partnership programs, transaction, insurance, etc. The API platforms helps you to link your business process, service, content, and data with partners, internal teams, and independent developers in a simple and safe way. However, this platform provides the flexibility to introduce innovations with minimum costs and low risk. The introduction of the API by the provider of banking service will allow reserving real-time data, opening the user access to more personalized information resource. When using open banking system, banking data will be provided through a secure open API, so that customers, be they people or companies, can manage their money more efficiently. Thanks for your attention.
To make such an answer, we have to postpone our discussion of this presentation because of less of time of next our reporter, our respectable assistant professor of corporate finance department, and we built our work such a way. We give the word to assistant professor Yuri Semyon Bogotyrev, and after that we discuss all both two reports, Semyon Bogotyrev and our previous presenter from Rostov. Thanks for understanding. Please.
Hello. I would like to get through some techniques developed by us concerning behavioral analysis, which we can apply to ICO. So everybody knows about ICO. They become very popular nowadays. We have some statistics on it. And I think we can apply instruments of behavioral finance for analyzing this new phenomenon. Everybody is aware about Bitcoin. Last night it jumped for 20% this night. The information about ICO is very closed. It's a lot of information. There are some resources, but no one reveals the whole information about it. So we should apply instruments developed on other markets, such as M&A market. We use prospect theory, which was developed by Kahneman and Tversky, and we see here Kahneman, who said people become risk-seeking when all their options are bad. And Kahneman and Tversky, developed a prospect theory. Prospect theory can be described in a short slide like this, where we can see grid and profit lines like this. On axes, on abscissa and ordinate abscisses, we have value, losses and gains. And here, during our research for 5 years, we tried to plot this graph, this value graph of value function, which is a core element of prospect theory, in Russian conditions on Russian M&A markets. For this, we developed another instrument developed by a Statman professor, American professor, in which he uses BAPM model. It goes from a CAPM model, capital asset pricing model, but to catch some behavioral aspects, they use some additional element to CAPM formula to describe behavioral factors that are important on the market. So we did this. We measured gains and losses of a value on Russian M&A market during 5 or even 7 years, from years before crisis 2014, and after it. And so we received very interesting results. Actually, we haven't got a classic theoretical value line as of value function of prospect theory. Instead, we have lines which resemble very much some classical economic theories. And this is interesting. This sheds light on new researches which we done on real data, on real markets. So I think we can apply the same research on ICO market because it's just starting to grow, and I think it's interesting. I think it can be useful. So the results of this research will be published very soon in some magazines and journals, scientific journals. So I think later we can provide you with these fundamental results, these articles, and I think we can use it in this field, in ICO field. I think that's all for a short time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your short presentation, but very important one. And dear colleague, do you have questions to our Professor Bogotyrev? Dear expert.
Nina Vladimirovna, I would like to ask some questions.
Yes, of course. Ask, Alina.
Yuri, thanks for the short and precise presentation. I would like to ask, do you consider that the real rate of Bitcoin today is the whole influence of behavioral economics and behavioral factors, so that people are seeking huge profits? That's why they are obsessed about ICO and Internet of Things and Internet of Finance. Thank you.
As it concerns Bitcoin, there is a big discussion now on internet, on Facebook. I'm in it. I give my comments on it. And so what I think, as a specialist in behavioral finance, I don't think it's a behavioral factors. I don't think it's a bubble. I think we have a different situation here. With a Bitcoin, we have a new product, completely new industry, and we have a new mean of payment. So here we haven't got any behavioral aspects, because behavioral finance starts where we have a financial competency. Here we have nothing, we have no knowledge. As for ICO, as for new currencies, we haven't got anything. It's a new. But what we have here, it's a freakonomic. Freakonomic is a science about how to cheat somebody, how to gain somebody from someone who knows nothing. So it's not a criminal science, but it's some criminal aspects here. So we balance here, and it's nothing to do with behavioral finance, and it's nothing to do with a bubble. It's my opinion.
Thank you, Yuri. It was an interesting answer. I also was about to say and ask, is it a financial bubble or not? And our students are pretty much curious about the rate of Bitcoin. Is it going to hit a new peak like $20,000 or something more? Do you really think it's going to be possible?
I'm afraid I didn't catch. Could you please repeat it once again?
Yes, I was about to ask that. Today we have the rate is $14,000 for one Bitcoin. Is it going to hit 20,000 or any other record?
Yes, I think it's possible. Yes.
Is it any like number that it's going to stop? I mean, like 25,000, 30,000, 50,000, 100,000.
Yes. It will stop automatically, because the author of this currency had put a limit on Bitcoins. So it's a limit integrated into this currency.
Okay, thank you.
Our next expert, Ekaterina Svirna, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not a big deal of an expert, but still I'm very curious about the graph that you showed us. And would you please comment on the axis that you used, this combination of losses versus value, gains versus value?
Да, нет, ну график, we need a graph. So we have gains and losses, and we have an estimate of a person, value, losses and gains. So on the right upper part of a graph, we have euphoria on markets where you receive somebody without paying too much for it. For example, the situation was on Russian M&A market before the crisis, where we had a bunch of capitals. Everybody was pushing to invest into any business, and there was no competition among companies sold, but there was investors' competition. The situation changed after 2014, where the investment potential was squeezing very much, and there was no money on the markets, but instead there were a lot of companies to be sold. So on beneath left bottom part is a part where you fear that you will lose everything if you don't sell it right now. So in this part, losses on the left and beneath on the bottom, you sell your business at any price, and you lose more than you gain when you sell a business in a better circumstances. So we've measured the losses and gains by the behavioral part of CAPM, broadened CAPM model, which is called BAPM, Behavioral Asset Pricing Model, by percents of losses and gains. And the value is measured as the total value lost or gained when selling your business. So of course it's a different way to measure gains and losses. Totally different from what was proposed by Kahneman and Tversky, because they use probability. We don't use probability. With probability, it becomes very theoretical, and nobody plotted this graph from 80s, where the article first appeared in the last century, in 1979. The paper was published for the first time. But this graph, which we see here, is what was proposed even earlier. It's a graph which goes from 1950, where it was first proposed on the stock market. And we decided to plot it in real circumstances, in real life. And what we have here, what we see here, it's a totally different shape of curves and a different behavior of these graphs. So it's very interesting. And we see here the difference between pure theory and real life and real data and empirical graphs which we have during real research. So that's the idea. And I think we can apply it to cryptocurrencies, new markets, and new ICO, as we see here. I'm sorry I didn't tell anything about ICO because of a time shortage, but you see here on the first slide some statistics on it. Actually, we haven't got much statistics, so that's why we are blind here in this field yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it enough? Professor Debelov, and despite lack of your time, thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, nevertheless, we continue our discussion and turn back to our previous presenter from Rostov, Rodion. Can you answer several questions from our experts?
Yes, please.
And I give the word to our expert, Ekaterina Smirina, please.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. So, my question concerns the smart contracts. I'm not very acquainted with the smart contracts, but as it seems from your presentation, it does have potential. Somehow, in some countries, can you say that it does have potential for Russia, taking into consideration strong legal basis that we have that can contradict the technology that smart contract is using, taking into consideration some social aspects and institutional aspects? Thank you.
Rodion, we wait.
Thanks for your question. The possibilities of using these technologies went beyond what was predicted 10 years ago. The insurance industry can now be transformed in a device for smart contracts and structure. If you don't pay contributions, insurance don't apply to you. If you don't declare insurance case, the amount of your contribution is reduced and you can qualify for the bonus if in an insurance accident happens to you, you receive a payment. In the insurance industry, smart contracts will be useful to insurance companies and their plans. Under the current system, even elementary case take weeks to consider because of a bureaucracy and administrative delays, while the insured spends on their money. Smart contracts in insurance will work best when determining clear payments for payment first platform that use smart contracts is Ethereum. The main value of smart contracts is their security in comparison with the traditional contracts, and the minimization of transaction costs associated with the conclusion of the contract and possible legal costs.
Okay, I satisfied?
More or less, but have you actually scrutinized the Russian legal legislation and all the laws that can touch the introduction of smart contracts in Russia?
Excuse me, can you ask one more time, please? We can't hear you properly. Would you please repeat your question?
Have you actually scrutinized the laws, Russian laws, in order for the smart contracts to be introduced in our country? Have you scrutinized? Have you seen the laws? Have you checked for them? Are they okay? Is it okay?
Main difficult of smart contracts is a legal status. For the work of smart contracts, cryptocurrency is used and is not yet accepted as an official financial instrument. In Russia, smart contracts is not used.
because of the lack of regulation. And nowadays, like 2 days ago, a central bank issued a document where it is prohibited, and you have to obey the rule that creating some cryptocurrencies for payment is prohibited. So it's now under the law. And now it's the main difficulty of widespread existence of smart contracts in Russia.
Thank you.
Dear colleague, I remind you about our time restriction and limitation, and I am forced to interrupt our interesting discussion and give the word our next presenter from Vietnam, our Vietnamese colleagues. Are you ready?
Yes. We actually have a question for the presenter from the Rostov State Chesswatch University, but because I think that we don't have too much time, so now can I start now? Did you hear me?
A question to our previous presenter, Rostov.
Yes, we can hear you. Vietnam, we can't hear you.
A minute. We are opening your
we just can hear you. Just like a minute, we couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Go on with the question, please.
Hello, can you hear me clearly?
Excuse me?
Hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Dưới cùng.
Dear Vietnamese friend, I see any doubt about about your question in our Rostov audience. So can you be so kind and repeat your question, or do you need certain slide for your repetition, for your repeating question? So, dear Vietnamese colleague, if you have a question to our previous presenter, please type it on our MMS field. But now we are waiting for your report.
We actually have a question for the presenters from the rest of universities. So now please, a question.
And type it.
Have we got any recommendation to apply the contact in real to use as? We got any recommendation? For example, for Vietnam, we don't use, but if we want to use smart contract, which step we could do to use smart contracts?
I repeat my request. Please type your question to our Rostov presenter.
Because we can't hear you properly, and we would appreciate if you can write down the question or type it and send it to us, and we will be pretty much precise in the answer. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So, nevertheless, despite our misunderstanding our Vietnamese colleagues, let me give the word to Vietnamese presenter, and now we are waiting for Vietnamese report.
Sorry, because we is ready. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your two very interesting presentation from Moscow and from the rest of university. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you quite clearly.
Today is
Right
not
now we are
to,
putting your presentation.
but I want to provide you some overview about the industry 4 and the impact, actually the opportunities and the challenge for the Vietnam banking sector.
Да, они тоже загружают что-то одновременно с нами.
Пусть загружают, пусть они загружают.
Present now? Present now, present now. Present now, okay. Close. So sorry because there's some interruption in uploading the slideshow. Thôi bật lên thì nói nghe.
Большая. Довольно большая, наверное, поэтому. Так они загружают. Не будем тут говорить? Нет, просто будет большая.
Dear student, we actually need your activity, and till this moment, I didn't hear any question from you. So,
PowerPoint.
if you are in doubt about pronunciation or some other detail of your language, please write down your question. And maybe give me your notices with your question.
Ну что? Как видите.
Не загрузилось?
Большие файлы.
Можно обрезать, я уже показывала.
Для этого выбрал удалить половину.
And давай начинаем показ, да?
Нет, они просто отпустили. До этого они пытались загрузить. Сейчас они перестали пытаться загрузить.
Viết câu hỏi thì em đọc được.
Dear Vietnamese colleague, we try to upload your presentation, but it is too big.
I'm so sorry because we are trying to upload the slideshow, but we fail.
Now we are trying to shorten the time of uploading, but without any success. So it seems to be upload already, and now start, please.
So our presentation today is about the industry 4 and the opportunities and challenge for Vietnam banking sectors. I want to provide overviews about the Vietnamese banking sectors and the challenge, the opportunities in the age of industry 4. Okay. So let's full screen. My presentations, including four main parts. Firstly, I want to show you the outlines of the Industry 4, then the opportunity and challenge for the banking sector in general, and the third one is the situation of Vietnam in the age of Industry 4. Will suggest some solution for the commercial banks in Vietnam.
Они еще не перелистнулись. Скажите им, чтобы нажали кнопку сверху.
Okay, so firstly, is the Industry 4, or normally we can call it the fourth industrial revolution, start from the 2011. Because that's the Industry 4, because before this revolution we have already the three revolutions. The first ones from the 19th centuries and features by the mechanizations, water power, steam power. The second from the 19th centuries and featured by the mass production, assembly lines, and especially the use of electricity. The third one is the appearance of computers, the automation, and especially the internet. And now, with Industry 4, what is the drivers and what is the characteristic of Industry 4? For the drivers of Industry 4, is including three drivers. The first one comes from the physical technologies. It's automation, the 3D printing, the robots, the new materials. The second, and I think that is the most important drivers of the Industry 4, is digital technologies. It's comprised the artificial intelligence, the cloud computing, big data analysis, machine learning, and blockchain. And the last one is the biological technologies, for example, the gene tech, the bioprinting, or the transplant technologies. So what is the key factors of the Industry 4? You can see the Industry 4 includes many factors. We can see here the autonomous robots. As you remember, last month, the first robot in the world has been granted as a citizen of the Saudi Arabia. Her name is Sophia. And besides autonomous robots, we have the other factors such as the big data, the augmented reality, or we normally heard about the virtual reality, right? The cloud computing, the cyber security, IoTs, and simulation or system integration. So the characteristic of Industry 4 is the first, the technologies, you can see, they change rapidly and impact on our society large and deeply. Its impact on the individuals, the families, the corporation, and the countries overall. The Industry 4 also connect and share the data. In the age of the Industry 4, the collecting and sharing the data becoming more and more important. In long term, we can see that the Industry 4 have a positive impact, but it can be negative in short term. The revolution also combined many different technologies. They connect the cyber physical system and change the information data flows. Okay, and what people care about the Industry 4 is about the job. So which type of jobs will be impacted by the Industry 4? According to the Equality Free and also in 2013, nearly 50% jobs in US, in Northern Europe and UK can be replaced by robot. And in Southern Europe, this percentage is even higher. It reached around 50 to 60%. Some particular jobs such as auditing or transportation, with auditing, 30% will be done by the artificial intelligence. in the next 10 years. And for the transportation, the job is the transportation, around 10% cars in US. Now you can see that are autonomous, and it predicts to reach 10% of the cars are autonomous in 2026. Okay, and the business insiders has listed here 12 jobs can be taken over by the robot. You can see a lot of the job here, such as travel agents or even the brokers can be quickly replaced by the robot in the near futures. And if you look at the giant in the IT, the Amazon, you can see that the workforce in Amazon now, most of them are robots. A few years ago, just around 1,400 robots worked for Amazon. Today, this number increased dramatically to 45,000. Okay, and so what is the opportunities and challenge for the banking sectors generally? In terms of the opportunities, the industry force will have to reduce the transition and the administrative costs. According to the statistic and the prediction of the McKinsey & Co., it will have the banking sector to save around 30 to 80% of the operating costs. Second, the industry for helps the corporation in general and the banking and the commercial bank in particular applies a new technology to improve the qualities of service, the management, the planning, productivities, and competition as well. This will also have to increase ability to access, to share, and collect the data, especially with the fintech. And the revolutions in technology also helps the corporation to create a new business opportunities based on the digital technologies, the e-commerce or digital finance. It increases ability to join the global and regional value chains, participate in the e-economy, including the finance, medical, insurance, tourism, education, commerce, and real estate. The corporations and the commercial bank also have an opportunity to innovate rely on the big data analysis. You can see in the digital banking models. Okay. Okay. And you can see these graphs. So most of these transactions will be conducted online in the banking sectors, and you can compare in 2012 to 2020. The first one, you can see that most of sales and value add will still come from the branch, the real branch of the commercial bank, but most of the transactions in the futures will be conducted online, more than 60%, as you can see in the second slide, second graph, sorry. So,
dear Vietnamese colleague, sorry for interrupting you, but may I ask you to press top button on your screen when you turn pages?
Bottom?
Top button on your screen.
Yeah.
When you turn pages. Because we have some disconnection between your text and our pictures.
Они вас слышат, но не понимают, о чем речь.
You have top button on your screen.
Yeah, two buttons on the screen.
Yes.
Принять роль выступающего.
Accept the role of presenter. Something like that. On the top of your screen.
On the top of the screen.
When you turn pages,
По центру, top center.
at the very center of screen.
Yeah.
Давайте я прекращу показ у нас.
Не надо, камера заглушать будет.
Не, она не будет все, она в следующий раз же покажется сразу. Скажите, запустите еще раз свою презентацию.
Start your presentation again, please.
Okay.
Не понимаю. Они ее просматривают, понимаете? У них сверху кнопка, что показать, начать показ.
Okay, continue, please. Sorry for interrupting you. Where is...
So what is the effect of the digital technology on the service, sales and efficiency of the banking sectors? To 2018, according to the BCG's predictions, the digital-based business will contribute around 44% of the revenues of banking sectors, compared with the only 32% in 2014. And the big data and business analytics will be the benefactor to create a difference and increase the efficiencies. To further the 2020s, the assets managed by robo-advisors will rise around 68% per year, when reached approximately $2,200 billion, according to the Kini in 2015. And 60% of investment in the information technology will belong to the cloud computing. Okay, and a company with opportunities, banking sector also have to face with many challenges in the age of the Industry 4. The first is the change in the business models, the structural administrative models, or the cultural, the legal form. The revolution also requires the whole investment in the IT system, and especially the human resource will be highly impacted, because many companies will cut and screen the labels and require more knowledge and skill and qualifications for the employees, and the criteria will be changed in the futures. The IT-related risks will increase, for example, the security or the payment of data. Most of it, and the competition in the banking sectors will be more and more severe among the digital banks or between the commercial bank and the fintech companies. The emergence of the digital currency, for example, the Bitcoin or the OneCoin, and the impact on the payment system of the in the monetary market. For example, in Vietnam today, the State Bank of Vietnam would not allow to use the Bitcoin or OneCoin as a means of payment. Another challenge is the lack of the knowledge related to the digital finance from the customers or the companies or the regulators. And especially the underdeveloped legal framework today in some countries, in some developed countries, such as in Vietnam, it will decrease the opportunities while increase the legal risk. And this graph shows you the labels rate are highly impacted by the Industry 4, by industry. And the red columns here you can see is banking and finance sectors. In Vietnam, you can see agriculturals and the distribution is two sectors will highly impacted by the Industry 4, while the banking and finance sectors at the medium level. Okay, so for the labels, the challenge is the new organization structure will obviously reduce the quantities employees. So the company can give the priority to young people with higher productivities and deeper knowledge related to technologies. So in the future, the features of new labor generation can be, they must have a good understanding about technologies. They can do a lot of things or multi-functionals instead of just one skill. And they have aspiration and ambitions, confidence, independence, and open mind. This table shows you the top 10 digital currencies, including the Bitcoin at the first row, you can see. And today, the price of the Bitcoin will have been reached $14,000, and it is expected to be higher in the near futures. How the governments, how some governments respond to the emergence of the digital currency such as Bitcoin. In Vietnam, our country, our government not allows the Bitcoin with trade. This means that it's illegal to use Bitcoin to make a payment in any transaction. Okay, the third part of our presentation is about the Industry 4 and the situation in Vietnam according to the digital finance and banking sectors. Vietnam is now among the world's top 20 internet users. You can see in this graph, so that Vietnam now ranked in 2017, ranked around 16 in the world, and in the top internet users. As these two graphs show you the potential of Vietnam in the digital technologies. As the left-hand side is a global digital snapshot, while the right-hand side is the situation of Vietnam. And if you see the green ovals and the pink ones, we show you that in the world, the average numbers of the mobile users it's around 66%, but in Vietnam, the mobile penetration is more than 100. And if we compare the social mobile users, the users of the social network, in the world, the average number is just only 34%, but in Vietnam, it's much higher, it's 43%. Okay, so in Vietnam, you can see that the Industry 4 now have a high impact in the whole economies. The e-commerce now reached, last year in 2016, reached $5 million, and it can achieve 10 billion. It means that grow 20% per year in the next 5 years. We have around 32 companies cooperate with the foreign partners in online business. Last month in Vietnam, we held a Vietnam e-payment forums, and there's lots of foreign companies, especially the Alibabas, come to find opportunity to invest in. Uber and Grab, the technology, the high-tech taxis, started the business in Vietnam around 7 years ago, but actually just from 2014 and were officially approved after 1 year. Today we have around 20,000 drivers work for Uber, and this number is still increasing. The first 3D printing company in Vietnam, named 3D Man, established 10 years ago, and they start the 3D printing business from 2015. There's some firm start to use the robot in the manufacturing, and if you go to visit some industrial park in Vietnam, you can see that the number of robots now replace the humans more and more popular. Okay, And this table shows you the development of the digital bank in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we have around 40 commercial banks, including 7 state-owned banks. They are the largest bank in Vietnam. Around 6 foreign banks, 3 joint ventures, and 27 private or choice stock banks. Almost all of these banks now provide the internet banking and mobile banking to the customers. And they also contact with the customers through the social medias like Facebook or Twitter. And especially they use some digital applications to provide to the customers. For example, the BIDV is one of the biggest banks in Vietnam. Use the smart banking or the digital life of the Vietcom Bank or Vietin Bank paid. In the choice stock bank, we have some cooperation between the VP Bank and T-Mobile. T-Mobile is one of the fintech company in Vietnam in payment, and now we have a cooperation with the VP Bank to provide service to the customers. And the TP Bank, just a small bank in Vietnam, but in this year they start to use a live bank. It's type of machine to replace the human in the transaction with customers. With the TP Bank, TP Live Bank, the customer can use this machine to open an account, to deposit, to transfer money without any availability of human. Okay, in terms of the fintech, the financial technology in Vietnam, we have a lot of fintech companies, and they're investing in crowdfunding, in payments. Most of them now invest in payments to provide a solution for the payment system. And besides the crowdfunding payments, we have some solution for the lendings, the data management, and sorry, okay. Let's see here. So through these examples, we see the potential of Vietnam in the age of digital finance. Obviously, Vietnam has a favorable demographics with nearly 100 million population, with the median age just 30 years old, and a fast-growing economy with GDP growth rate more than 6% projected in 2017 and next year, 2018. We have high smartphone penetration and commitment to the digitalization by both the regulators and the senior bankers point to this. Vietnam ranked 12th in the Global Innovation Index this year, according to the WIPO, and 62% internet users now do online shopping. It's a very opportunity for the e-commerce industry. Customer behaviors now change a lot. They tend to use the digital bank instead of go to a real store and do the transactions. And the fintech firm now grow rapidly, as you can see in the previous slide. Okay, this graph shows you the median age in Vietnam, and you can see that the median age in Vietnam is just around 30 years old, a young population, as you can see. And around the regulations, Vietnam also has some legal frameworks for the digital banking, start from last year's. In August of the last year, the Prime Minister issued a decision to approve the master plan for e-commerce development in from 2016 to 2020 period. And in next 1 month, the Prime Minister continued to impose a decision on the project to enhance the access to banking service for the economy. At the end of the year, we have another decision issued by the Prime Minister on approving the scheme on non-cash payment in Vietnam for a 5-year period. And this year, in the earliest of this year, the State Bank of Vietnam, the central bank in Vietnam, established a steering committee on fintech to support the operation of the fintech company in Vietnam. And recently, the Prime Minister continued to impose a directive to strengthen the ability to access the Industry 4. All of the response of the government so that the Vietnamese government are ready to encourage and to get advantage from the Industry 4. The QR code payments are one of the products from the Industry 4. You can see now become more and more popular in the world and in Vietnam as well. From January to September of this year, the QR code payment in Vietnam grew more than 100%, exactly 120%. Until the end of the next year, it's predicted that the number of QR posts will reach 50,000 compared with just 5,000 in this year. Okay, and the last part of my presentation is some solution for the banking sectors in the age of the Industry 4. The commercial bank should evaluate the impact of the revolution on the business and adjust and implement a suitable business model or strategy in the digital age, and especially care about the cultural problem. They should invest more in the information technology and change the requirements for the labels, even create a new criteria for the employees. The commercial bank should accelerate the cooperation and sharing among the banks and the fintech companies. So instead of compete with the fintech companies, the commercial bank can find a way to cooperate with them and provide more services to the customer. The bank should enhance the management capacity while manage the IT risk and support the customer and the partner in understanding of how the Industry 4. And last but not least, is proposed idea for the regulator to improve the legal framework. Okay, and the last one I will show you the cooperation between the bank and the fintech through this graph. As I said before, instead of competing with the fintech companies, the commercial bank can find a way to cooperate with them and diversify and invest in the product of the fintech company and provide more quality services to their customers. And I think that is a good way for them to develop in the age of the digital finance and Industry 4. That's all my presentation, and thank you very much. And if you have any question, please feel free to make. Thank you.
But such development. And dear friends, dear colleagues, do you have any question to our presenter? Question from Professor Skalton.
Thank you very much for impressive presentation, and I was actually shocked how fast Vietnam is developing towards fourth industrial revolution developments. And with regard to that, I got a question concerning blockchain technology that was discussed today, and the regulatory developments in this area, because many countries in the world struggle with defining what is digital currency, or what are abilities and problems and a regulatory environment that could be implemented for innovating this new technique of exchange of values. And still most countries, except few, have not had big progress in this area. And what specifically you mentioned? I saw you mentioned many regulatory innovations in Vietnam, but concerning blockchain or crypto or digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, how this work is being developed? Could you specify? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. Actually, in Vietnam today, as I presented before, our government haven't allowed the cryptocurrencies as Bitcoin to be traded in the market. This means that now in Vietnam you cannot use Bitcoin to do any transaction. We have a plan, the State Bank of Vietnam have a plan to, and they're building a regulation to for the Bitcoins and the other cryptocurrencies. But now it hasn't finished, and I think that they will issue the new regulatory for the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency in the early of next years. In Vietnam today, we have a lot of investors trying to invest in the Bitcoin. You can see that it's a very attractive investment because the price increase every day. But actually, it's an illegal investment in Vietnam.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Colleague, any other questions?
Yes, we have two questions, and the first one we actually have typewritten. I would like to ask our Vietnamese colleagues about the future of classical banking and fintech companies. Do you think that there are any opportunities for classical banking in the industry 0.4? Or is it only for fintech companies and the future is for industry 0.4? This is our first question.
So sorry, but I cannot hear the
We have the question is, our question is typewritten.
Alina, please shorten your question and pronounce it more explicitly.
Inna Vladimirovna, we send it actually, and the question is, do you think that industry 0.4 is only for fintech companies and no more for classical banking and classical financial services? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. As before in my presentation, the industry 4 is not just for the fintech company, but the fintech company, I think that can get a lot of advantage from the development of the high technology. But the banking sector, the classic banking sectors, as you said, can gain the benefit from the industry 4 by have a cooperation with the fintech company, and if they invest sufficient to the IT, I think that is, the classic banking sector can gain more benefit from the industry 4. Today in Vietnam, there's a lot of commercial banks invest in the ITs and use a lot of new the new application to serve the customer with a higher qualities. And as I said in the presentation, the cooperation between the VP Bank, a commercial bank in Vietnam, and the TMO, a fintech startup, is a typical example of the cooperation between the classical bank, commercial bank, and a fintech company. So I think, in my opinion, Industry 4 is not only for the fintech companies, for every other corporation, including the banking, the commercial bank.
Thank you. We have the same situation in Russia. Only the cooperation between fintech, which helps the innovation, helps the banks to become more competitive. I don't mean actually Sberbank, because the Sberbank of Russia is the benchmark of the industry, and because of its size and their situation in the market, Sberbank holds the industry innovative features. And we also have one more question to our dear Vietnamese colleagues. So Ruslan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Yoko, for your presentation. That was really interesting. And I want to ask you about, we all know that the world become to the integration and globalization. And I want to ask you, what do you think, in which year these financial technologies can realize for all over the world and in the most less developed countries?
Yes, actually, we mean, can you predict the year in which the technology industry .4 become widespread for the developed and the developing countries? Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Alina, I think it is a very difficult question how to predict the year. And let me postpone this question to our future meeting. Nevertheless, dear colleague, it's time to finish our discussion. And I appreciate your participation in our meeting and hope our meeting will be regular as usual. And hope that today's meeting was fruitful and mutually useful. I appreciate your taking part in our event once more. Do you have any question to me, to any other participants?
No, actually, we're pretty much satisfied with the meeting and with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I announce the finishing of our today meeting. Till your meeting then.
You mean we predict about the Industry 4? Because I cannot hear you clearly the whole question.
I would like to say that our discussion is closed. We fulfill all our agenda for now, and it's time to finish, unfortunately, or to our mutual satisfaction, our today meeting. Thank you, all participants. Thank you very much.